Welcome back, everybody, to episode number 45 of the Faith and Whatever podcast, where the facts are made up and points usually don't matter if James is saying them. We are really excited today. We are going to be discussing New Year's resolutions, right? This is a new one for us. If it looks a little full tonight, it's because Garrett has finally sobered up from his Quaalude trip, and he is joining us to be able to have some good conversation.
Mushrooms.
Mushrooms. Same thing as Quaalude. Welcome. So, this is the new year. It is upon us, and if you're watching this, take a moment. I want to ask you a question. What is something you do every new year? You make
topic.
Resolutions.
Top topic.
Good. So our resolution train
We're on top of it today.
is on the move, and we're going to be talking about just some ways that you can keep your resolution, some encouraging points that we can give out, as well as offer some interesting perspectives on just the concept of making a New Year's resolution in general. So,
Okay, Garrett, take it away.
I want to start. Start this discussion by asking: do you guys yourselves have any resolutions? So, Garrett, take it away.
Oh, wow. I have had some in the past. I haven't thought of any at this point. We are expecting our second child, and it could be born on New Year's. So my new resolution is
be a good dad finally.
To
I'm just kidding.
Wow. I was going to say just keep this thing alive.
Swing it low.
Well, there you go.
For a month. That's your only concern as a new parent or a parent of a newborn. It's like, just please stay alive, you know?
I don't know.
Okay, well, you'll
have to take your word on that.
You'll know some.
I'm struggling just to keep my dog alive.
We'll look back on this video, and that joke will either be very funny or very not funny.
Yep, that's well. Okay.
All right.
No middle ground.
Okay, so that's our first New Year's res. Is keep the new baby alive.
Yeah, I've had some in the past. It's usually about eating healthy. I don't know why. That seems to be 90% of them. It seems to be a time that you didn't eat healthy for a while, the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only do you need to maybe lose weight, for us, or me specifically, I'm kind of tired of just the holiday
being
heavy
fat.
Foods.
Oh, yeah.
I want you to.
In general, I'm just like waiting because you don't get a lot of after like the harvest season, like after like all the fresh vegetables are.
I think you're the only person in Southern California, to whom the term harvest season might actually apply in any way.
Yeah.
I
Garrett,
thought harvest season was when the grocery store throws out the produce.
Garrett, your resolution ought to be that you eat only food that you find outside of airports and hotels.
If I could, I would. So yeah, eating healthy, fresh vegetables, things like
Opening
that.
a dumpster bistro.
Dumpster bistro.
A dumb tristo. All right, James, you got a resolution?
You know, I never do the resolution thing, but if I was going to make one, it'd probably be to
Get more swole.
Get swole in the right spots this time. No, but it'd probably be to just kind of try to add quality to Faith and Whatever and to the connected podcasts like Game Club and Edibles and all that. I'd
Pretty
like to,
hard to add more quality to this.
I know. We've already peaked at the mountain.
It's pretty hard to save a train wreck.
Time to learn to fly.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. I think that would be all of ours.
Well, let me ask you, why is it that you've never done a New Year's resolution?
Why have you never made quality?
You think no value? Do you think it's just you don't want to?
Well, we'll jump into that. We're going to jump into that a little bit later, right?
All right.
Yeah. So, Chris.
Thought we were done.
I have no resolutions.
Okay. Is that your resolution?
Yes.
To make no
I
resolution?
resolve to make no resolutions, which violates my resolution.
So, really
Checkmate.
what you're saying
So much
is
for your
checkmate
resolve
atheist.
solution.
Yeah.
Checkmate.
Okay. That's a good one.
That'll be my new segment. Checkmate atheists.
Actually, Chris will be our senior atheist checkmate correspondent from here on out. My resolution, I would like to have a child in 2017, or at least start the process.
What?
So I have two.
So you got about 3 months to get started.
Yeah.
So,
In case you didn't know, it takes 9.
okay, well,
That's true.
we all know that life begins at conception, Chris. Just kidding. I mean, I don't know. But
There's no way to finish it.
Just kidding.
I'd like to finish my thesis, first of all. That's my
Abandoned
big one
ship.
for this year. And, and if there's time in the back half of the year, I'd like to start having a child. That'd be fun. I don't know if it works that way, but I guess you can just always start over.
It doesn't need a lot of time.
I mean, I can return it,
I
right?
mean,
If I don't like it.
So we'll see. Whatever.
Does your wife know about this?
And I mean, she's pretty much
Does
game
your
for
wife
whatever.
know you're trying to get pregnant?
She's pretty much game for anything. So I wanted to talk about this today, largely because New Year's resolutions are like a big thing all across our world. people are big on this idea of the reinvention of the self. And recently, I guess not recently, but there's been some studies that have come out that talk about the idea of our brains using these ideas of like New Year's, birthdays, or as what's called temporal landmarks, right?
Temporal.
Temporal.
It's not
temporal.
like
Earthly,
temporal.
earthly landmarks.
Deep fried landmarks.
Yeah, so these temporal landmarks. And these are big and these are important for us because what they do is in our mind is they represent a chance for the new self, right? A new version of ourselves to come and be remade into something, to become somebody who grows into something better. So if I make a resolution, right, that new Josh is going to always go to the gym or eat healthy, like he said, we have a propensity, though, to look at ourselves or the old versions of ourselves with a little bit of disdain or looking down on that.
Disappointment.
And that ends up being what sets us
Shame.
up to fail. And so this is interesting because while these resolutions help make transitions between the old version of ourselves and the new potential version of ourselves, it's important that we don't necessarily look at the old version of ourselves and go, oh man, I can't believe I used to be that. That's kind of blech. I can't believe I used to be, whatever. And instead, it's helpful to actually begin to look at ourselves as people who are on this journey, right? And we're growing. It's a matter of growth, not entire transformation. And so what that really does is it helps us break down the difference between micro and macro change on perhaps a semantical level, but one that's important nonetheless. Basically meaning that if we're able to look at ourselves as somebody who's going through this journey of progression, it makes the idea of attacking this New Year's resolution thing a little less overwhelming, a little less daunting. But it also, what it does is it saves you a little bit if you kind of get a little astray from your goals, if you kind of fall off the wagon a little bit. Because if you're looking at this as a journey, right, as opposed to just like, I was this way, now I'm this way, and if you don't follow through on being this way, then you kind of, so it's like it's the new me versus the inner me there. And this is a perfect example of that. Wait.
I thought you said nude me versus inner me. I was like, that's confusing.
What is this a reference to?
So that's
You
Kermit.
haven't seen the Kermit meme?
You've
Evil
never seen
Kermit?
this?
Oh.
So this is like me saying good me says I should do something this, and then inner me says I want to do something evil. So like it's Christmas time, I should buy presents for people, and then inner me is like, shop for yourself, bro, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but that's a perfect example of what we're talking about. So we wanted to share just a couple ways and maybe a couple ideas with you about different resolutions that you could make that could be helpful, right? And James actually has an interesting point that's going to differ a little bit, but I wanted to offer two suggestions for when you're making.
Then I want to offer two better suggestions.
For when
I'm
you're
going to offer two suggestions.
and then Garrett's going to cue us out. And
Disprove
so
all of them.
So the two ideas that I wanted to at least throw around to you guys and see what you thought.
No, bro.
When we make these New Year's changes, wrong. That
False.
the first one is being the idea of what's called semantic framing. All right. So this semantic framing allows us to be able to move.
Is that when my wife buys those frames that has like love and peace all over the sides of them?
Sentimental framing?
Live, laugh, love. Is
but-
that one?
Live, laugh, love.
Die.
Jeez. That was better than mine. I was gonna say lust. So
7 deadly sins. Live, laugh, love.
Lust, die.
that's 5. So the idea of semantic framing allows us to do things like changing our language is essentially what we're talking about here. So instead of looking at these things that we do or don't do as can or cannot, if we say like, oh, I can't go to the gym, I don't feel like it or whatever, instead of saying I can't, you switch to I don't, right? So moving ourselves into a different frame of mind.
You kind of got to Yoda yourself.
I mean, a little bit. And the idea of what's valuable about that is it's beginning to give what kind of James has referred to as like the power of responsibility. And that's good because when we give ourselves responsibility.
So the phrase would be, instead of, man, I can't go to the gym, it's that I'm not going to
Man,
the
I'm
gym.
lazy.
And yeah,
That would be-
I mean, kind of recognizing that, like realizing that if you want to do something, you
You'll do
can
it.
do it, right? If you want it, you'll make a way. If not, you'll make an excuse. Is kind of the adage. And so if we look at that and say, I want to go to the gym, or I want to live a life that's more healthy, or whatever resolution that we make, using that specific power of suggestive language will allow us to begin to frame things in a better context that not only makes it more applicable for us in the new year, but gives us a little bit more of that ownership and responsibility, and we begin to feel ourselves take charge. So that's the first one. So what do we think about that? It strikes me as kind of helpful, but also maybe a little obvious. I don't know.
But you know, there's powers in words and the way you frame things. If you frame things in a sense where you speak, where in your speech you're taking the power away from yourself. I can't go to the gym this week. I just haven't been able to go to the gym this week. then you don't give yourself any kind of reason to take to take yourself seriously and to take your own decision making seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you say, I did not go to the gym, I chose to avoid it,
Right.
and you use language that places responsibility on yourself, then you might actually start making better decisions after you've recognized your own decision making. And I could see the power. There's power in words. Like, whether you like it or not, words have power. The way we frame things has power. And that's very important. Yeah.
And so the second thing kind of builds on top of the first thing, realizing the power in our words, and then following that up with not biting off more than we can chew. Right. So one of the mistakes that I see and hear from people so often, especially working in like a ministry setting or talking with students, is this idea of students trying to do and people trying to do too much, right? So I had 3 goals last year, right? I wanted to make any headway on my thesis. Like, I just wanted to start it there, and I got that done. The second one was I wanted to learn a language, and the third was I wanted to learn how to play piano. And
how's that language going?
And well, I'm a little bit more fluent in sarcasm than when I started. So I got about 2.5 months into piano, and then I was starting to implement the language stuff on top of it, and then I just got burnt out, and I didn't do either one. And so I realized is that if we start with just something a little bit smaller, right? Maybe one new revolutionary life thing at a time. So learning a new instrument is a very hard thing to do, and learning a new language is a very hard thing to do. Combining them together is basically setting yourself up to fail there. So instead of taking on a multiplicity of challenges or these different varying things that all require a little bit of your time and attention, picking just one thing and sticking to that through the year. And so instead of having 3, 4, or 5, if you want to do 3, 4, or 5 small things, that's different. But instead of 3, 4, or 5 big things, maybe just picking one big thing and really trying to focus in on that for the year. So the power of words and really just the power of singularity, I guess, are the 2 suggestions that I have in terms of making New Year's resolutions that might be helpful, and also things that you might actually achieve and stick through beyond February 1.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I think I have one kind of advice, and it's kind of similar to your last one. I think, and I'm sure studies have been done, and I would imagine the success rate of New Year's resolutions is pretty close to single digits, maybe. I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know, 8 or 9% of the time. And I think one of the main reasons why is that you try to do something that's kind of beyond your ability, and that's what you're hoping that you'll be able to do, hoping to reinvent yourself and do something you've never been able to do. But the problem with that is you're never able to build upon that. You're never able to plan 3 or 4 or 5 year goals because you keep failing your 1 year New Year's resolution. And so, like you said, by February, you can't even do the thing that you wanted to do anymore. So next year, you're either going to plan a smaller goal or you're just going to have the same goal again. Well, if you had something attainable, then you could say this year I want to do this, and then next year you can build on top of that. And then 5 years later, you can look and see the progressive growth you've made to being a better version of yourself instead of just restarts and restarts and restarts. So my only advice would be, instead of making a New Year's resolution, make a 5-year resolution that begins with year 1. And the thing that you are able to accomplish is something attainable and that allows you to build onto it next year. And so that next December you can look back and go, man, I actually did it this year. So now I'm going to do something on top of last year's goal to move myself even further, instead of something so big that you just got to start it over again.
That's pretty good. Pretty good thoughts. All right. So, Chris, do you have anything you want to add?
8%.
8%.
Oh, nice. Good.
I think
You nailed that.
Statisticbrain.com.
Based on just interview questions, polls?
Yeah. So, I mean, here's how I would frame all of this. I have 2 points that are very closely related, which is I think there's probably a lot more value, at least particularly for the Christian, that I would suggest try to make New Year's resolutions that are not about self, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like having yet another thing in your life that's all about you, a resolution now, try to create a resolution that's about other, right? That's about helping others. It's about performing a task that benefits
so
others.
So you can be more like Christ.
Right. I mean, there's always an effect upon self.
Sure.
Right.
But the idea is, instead of making a goal that is directly about self, let that be indirect and have it a goal that's directly about someone else. And honestly, like, even if, like, let's say you say, well, James, I really want to start working out. And I could use a New Year's resolution to do that. Well, think of it this way, and here's my second point that's very closely related. Instead of making a resolution that you need to work out 3 times a week or whatever, Instead, make a resolution that says, let's say Josh Carmen over here is working out on a daily basis.
When
and
is he not?
Right. And then, or on
He's
a,
working out right now.
make
true.
a
Kegels.
resolution that states, you know what, I'm going to be a good friend to Josh Carmen by joining him in working out twice a week, 3 times a week. That I'm going to instead of making like, I'm going to work out 3 times a week for me, make it about doing something good for Josh, about partnering with him and being a good friend to him by working out and making it so this is a task that obviously you wanted to work out and get into that hobby, but make it about it being a benefit to somebody else and having that focus on somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because when you only have a responsibility to self, it's easy to let self down. I mean, when you don't want to do it anymore,
We rationalize failure pretty quickly.
There's no built-in accountability.
Right, the accountability falls away. Whereas when it's responsibility, it's accountability to friend, to
Right.
somebody else. It's not a guarantee, but I think you have probably a much better chance at being at least semi-successful in that, in trying to do for other and feeling responsibility to the other. So I think really resolutions are a great opportunity for leaving your bubble, for leaving self-interest, for really exercising, for expanding yourself into the benefit of somebody else's life for their sake.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And then what this does is, even if you took this idea of B and C and combined them, like this 5-year plan in terms of trying to help the other, you can still inevitably see the amount of growth that's going to kind of come into
Right.
your own life as well. So hopefully these are some helpful tips and tricks for you as you're kind of heading in and ramping up for the new year. As always, we hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to connect with us on all forms of social media. I'm at Josh_Carmen. Garrett is at TStudentLife. Jamothy is at JamesYUILE, and Chris is at Marion Ranch. We are at faithandwhatever.com or facebook.com/faithandwhatever. If you like the video, share, like, subscribe, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Either way is good to us. We'll talk to you soon.